welcome to another episode of Critical Conversations. To our Muslim friends, let me wish you all Selamat Hari Raya as well. Now that the holidays are over, I expect attention will shift to the elections. Anticipation of early elections has been building for some time now, as you know. This time around, there will be a very crowded field. For the first time, there could be 3 instead of the usual 2 coalitions fighting for your vote: Barisan Nasional, Pakatan Harapan, and Perikatan Nasional. At the same time, a number of independent candidates have also declared their intention to run for parliament. Foremost among the independent candidates is Gerak Independent. A few weeks ago, we had Gerak Independent candidates Siti Kasim and Taufik Tun Dr. Ismail as guests on the show. Today, my guests are 3 other Gerak Independent candidates who are planning to run for parliament come G15. We had another one, Remy Majankim, but unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, he's not able to join us. So the purpose of having them on the show today, so I want to ask them about why they are running, what they hope to accomplish, and why they think they deserve our vote. I'm sure those of you who are watching will also have questions and comments. So please join the conversation as we talk to my guests this evening. With that, let me welcome them into the live stream. First, I'd like to welcome Dr. KJ John. Dr. John is a former civil servant who spent considerable time with the Ministry of International Trade and Industry and in Intan. He's also an author, columnist, and political activist. He did his doctorate in the United States at George Washington University. Roland Cheng is from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, and is a lawyer by profession and a member of Lincoln's Inn. He has degrees from the University of Ottawa and the University of London. Ravee Suntheralingam is a certified chartered accountant. He's a graduate of Cambridge University and has a master's degree from Canterbury University, New Zealand. I see from his CV that he has also worked with the government of New Zealand. John, Roland, and Ravee, welcome to Critical Conversations.
Thank you.
Good to be here. I'm nice to have you. I'm going to start off by asking you, why are you running for parliament? What made you decide to run for parliament? John?
I was in public service for 33 years. And since 1980s, I began to see an erosion of values in general, moral and ethical values being eroded by policy decisions of various kinds. That's okay. And by 2006, just after I retired, I went to Parliament and registered a major complaint to the Parliamentary Special Committee on Integrity. But I heard nothing from them. And since then, everything else has gone down the stream. And today we are rife with corruption. And the country doesn't seem to have much of a future. So I thought, rather than sit on the sidelines and complain about it, why don't I try and take a shot at going into Parliament to see if I can make some of the changes from within? So that's really what motivates you. And the big issue I'm focused on is anti-corruption and bribery.
Okay, we'll come to that.
Yeah.
We'll come to that. Ravee?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Dennis. In fact, I never wanted to be a candidate. I was more interested to help others whom I felt would do well in Parliament. I met up with Haris Ibrahim after the disastrous Sheraton move and wanted to help put Gerak Independent candidates into Parliament because that is my core competency. I've already put 2 MPs into Parliament. But it was Haris Ibrahim that urged me to become a candidate myself because he was convinced that I will do what is good and right. I believe in Gerak Independent's core principles, which are the 5 pillars. So I considered all things and the price that had to be paid for a better Malaysia and step forward.
Thank you. Roland?
Why run for parliament? Well, that's where the laws are made. And I think that after nearly 60 years, it's time for Sabah's voice to be heard. That's why I'm running.
All right. Um, now you know that independent candidates have not fared well, both
History.
in the state and at federal levels. I mean, just look at Malacca and the recent Malacca and the recent Johor elections. In fact, most of the independent candidates lost their deposit. They didn't just lose, but they lost badly. Now, what makes you think that you can win without a party structure, without grassroots support, and of course, without money? Is this an ego trip for you guys, or do you really see an opportunity to make a difference in Parliament? Any one of you can feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I'll say something. See,
All right,
what is
Ravi.
paramount importance is for the rakyat to succeed. It's not a matter of me succeeding. The rakyat have to succeed. So in the case of Wangsa Maju, its elected representative must understand its demographics. In fact, Wangsa Maju has three distinct demographics, each with its unique needs. See, the key challenge is issues related to cost of living, job, and income opportunities, as well as home ownership. The way forward is to influence the realignment of national budget away from excessive spending in mega projects that benefit the elite and towards programs that and focus towards programs that develop competencies, especially for the B40 group. B40 folk must be released from the financial trap they are stuck in, and this is best achieved by skill development to increase the income whilst ensuring that inflation is contained. I have lived in Wangsa Maju for 32 years. I have previously implemented successful projects for the government. I know what needs to be done in Wangsa Maju. This makes me the ideal elected representative for Wangsa Maju.
All right. That's very confident of you. Roland?
Well, everybody that I have spoken to, they tell me very honestly that I will not get more than a few hundred votes. But I feel that it's very important to stand and have an alternative to the people of Sabah. The reason being because they have been having so many of the mainstream parties representatives for all these years. So I don't doubt that we will be having an uphill battle, but it is a matter of seeking alliances and working out what is best for everyone. Because I believe that if I had joined any party, I would immediately become alienated from other people who are supporters of other parties. So by being independent, I am not supporting of anybody's party, but I'm looking at solutions for Sabah so that I become a friend of everyone in Sabah and I don't fight with them, but I say, let's do this for Sabah.
But the question is, can you win?
Oh, yes, I would not be in this if I think I'm going to lose. So I believe that there are a lot of people out there who think like me, but they are just the silent type. They are just waiting for the right person to come along, the right opportunity. So it might not be me, but I think that there will be such an opportunity. And I sense that this is the time.
John?
Actually, since, well, many of us have been active on the ground trying to bring about a change in government for a long time. And finally, in 2018, we brought about that change. And then we all had hope. And then the hope was just extinguished out of the blues, and only because parties and party related egos were in battle. And today we have three so called coalitions, but they don't give us hope. In fact, even PH to some extent is huge disappointment for me personally, because we really put our faith in PH. And of course, they made some compromises to win and get into power. But then the pull out and the backdoor campaigns has affected all of us. So in net result of all this, in Parliament, the last time we had serious almost counting, you had 105 on each side. If you add up that's 210. What's left is only about 10 to 15 seats that are not accounted for in one side or the other. And that's why I got excited with the idea when GI was promoted and they said they've identified 14 seats where citizens who are committed to serve a cause can participate and win. So I got involved because we want to make a difference. I personally am literally physically tired of politicians who are professional politicians, who make it their business to be in politics as if it is the means of living and not a means for serving the public. So I would like to see that those values change, and I found within Gerak Independent a group of people who are committed to serve the public interest. That's why I'm running.
Admirable sentiments. But you have also, you both, Ravi, you and John, have both been very vocal about the excesses of UMNO BN. John, you talked about the corruption, and I think you both have been very focused on all the abuse of power, the misgovernance that has been going on. But why are you not taking them on instead of competing for seats now held by Pakatan Harapan, for example? Are you taking the easy way out? Are you hoping that you will be handed these seats on a silver platter?
Speaking for myself, definitely not. Okay, way back in 2006, I began to interchange ideas with people in politics. Okay, from way back in 2006, 2007. And everybody told me, if you want to go into politics, you must belong to a party. I didn't buy that because I couldn't see which party I could join, because I didn't buy into some of the things that the party stood for. Nevertheless, finally, I did make a choice and I joined Amanah. Okay, and nobody understands why I joined Amanah, but that was the only party who was committed to a cause against corruption. So I joined Amanah and was put into their think tank, and we were working very closely with a lot of ideas. And I saw possibilities there. But then when GI came along, and I heard about GI and met up with Taufik and Siti Kasim and the whole team, and we went through 2 rounds of interviews, I realized that maybe it's time to take the big risk, not just join a party which has its own hierarchy and climbing up and playing the game. If you want to speak with a conscience and vote with a conscience, we need to stand as independents so that our voice can be heard and we don't owe that voice to somebody else.
Yeah, fact is this: nobody can claim ownership to a seat. Every single seat, that means each of the 222 seats, actually belong to the Rakyat. It is the Rakyat that decides who will best represent their interest. In fact, I was in a political party before and I helped put 2 Wangsa Maju MPs into parliament. The thing is that these political parties have a system that encourages the pursuit of power. This is usually done by establishing personal loyalty in a popularity contest for party positions. Too much energy is expended in getting and staying in power. So I'm not interested in drama and all these kind of gimmicks. I want to see real sustainable changes that improve the lives of people who live in Wangsa Maju. And having been in a political party for quite a while, and after seeing the disaster that took place, I said no more. The people need an alternative choice.
Roland, I'm going to come to you, but let me just finish this trend of thought. So both you and John are willing to take on Pakatan Harapan, in this case PKR, because both the seats I think that you are interested in is now currently held by PKR. So you both are willing to take on PKR and compete for the support of the voters in those two areas, Wangsa Maju in your case, and John, I'm not sure whether you have finalized your seat selection. Where you're going to stand. You're going to stand in Petaling Jaya. So you guys are going to go head to head with PKR in Wangsa Maju and Petaling Jaya. And then after the election, you're going to work with them to advance legislation. Is that true? Is that right?
Let me put it this way. This particular question doesn't arise if Gerak Independent is part of the coalition. In fact, we have had discussions with Pakatan Harapan's component parties, as well as political parties that are not aligned to Barisan Nasional or Perikatan Nasional. You see, our ideological framework is similar to Pakatan Harapan in many ways.
So why should they make way for you when you're going to be just like them?
Yeah, so they need to now evaluate if they got a suitable candidate. Now, I can tell you this, for Parti Keadilan Rakyat, which I was before, they have certain criteria. You need to be a graduate. So I can tell you that for the party elections, those contesting for those positions right now, there are not very many graduates there who have the experience of dealing in Wangsa Maju. They don't have candidates. So the only other option is now to bring in a parachute candidate. And Wangsa Maju people are super sensitive about parachute candidates because in year 2010, Wee Chu Kyong, who was a parachute candidate who won by 150 votes, defected. He left, and people were very sore about it. The subsequent MP, Tan Ki Kong, had to say, Janji tak lompat. He had to promise the people of Wangsa Maju repeatedly that he will not defect. And go to him, he did not defect. So the people of Wangsa Maju want a local, but with Parti Keadilan Rakyat now in a position where they cannot find a suitable candidate, they should open their eyes and see if Gerak Independent should step in instead.
John, you want to add anything?
If I may add, actually, if you go back in history in Petaling Jaya, used to be called PJ Utara, okay? It's now renamed as Petaling Jaya, and the other half is called Damansara. So in Petaling Jaya, historically, it's been an MCA candidate until change began to happen. And the major change came when the current MP was elected in, but she was elected as an NGO. And the people of PJ are probably one of the most leading and most urban community in the country. They read, they are aware of issues, and they want to support issues. So when Bersayed was mobilized and the current MP was a Bersay leader, she went in as an NGO and she was elected. Unfortunately, after she was elected, she joined Pakatan Rakyat, and subsequently, unfortunately, I heard that she was also in Sheraton when the Sheraton move took place. So for that reason, PJ residents who don't know the whole story may be open, but one of my campaigns is going to be, we serve PJ in the interests of PJ. And I have some deep residing issues that I would like to focus on, which maybe we can discuss later, you know. But corruption is the main source and cause of majority of the problems in the country. And I would like to apply that to the area of local government if I have an opportunity, because there are 157 local government authorities in the country, and they are not all performing excellently. In many ways, they are performing very poorly. Subang Jaya may be one of the leading shining stars, but that's because it's only 50 years old and they've got a good band of councillors and others.
But you'll be running for parliament, not
I'm
for
running
local
for
council.
parliament, yes. Yeah. But the Ati Nahapan report was approved in parliament, but never executed. So you can't, I mean, a state by itself can't. It's approved under the Local Government Act. And you have to make the change.
Okay, I'll come back to that. Let me ask Roland this. Now, Roland, You and Remy too have been very vocal on Sabah, on the issue of Sabah rights under MA 63. I see from some of your comments that you have talked about insisting on the state's entitlement to 40% of the revenue as per the earlier agreement. But how do you think you can make a difference when successive Sabah politicians have failed or have not nearly accomplished this whole objective, this whole goal of state rights?
Okay. You see, you are very correct. Sabah has changed state governments quite a couple of times. But one thing that is very clear is each time when we change the state government, we lose even more of our rights. So, one thing that we have realized is that we like it or not, we have to work with the federal government. So, now the idea is we will work with whoever is in power or forms the power in Putrajaya. But we are too small to be able to determine who is going to have that power in Putrajaya. So we will not want to be in the fight to determine who is going to uh, govern Putrajaya. But whoever is there, we will work together with them. And on this issue of getting back Sabah rights, we have been talking about this for so long, and it is also stated in the federal constitution. But it's just that we do not have that majority in parliament to make the changes. So I foresee that to be able to make changes for Sabah, we will need to have the patience and also the strategy to work with everybody. We cannot afford to alienate everyone, but at the same time, we cannot afford to give up any more rights. So that is the walking between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Okay,
But
I'm
that
going to
is
say something controversial. I notice in this whole debate coming from Sabah and Sarawak about the fact that they have not been given their full rights under MA 63. There's a great deal of there's a great tendency to point fingers at Putrajaya, to blame Putrajaya for this state of affairs. But isn't it true that it is Sarawak and Sabah politicians, as much as Putrajaya, who have sold out the people? I mean, all these things that you're talking about today would not have happened if some of the politicians in Sabah and Sarawak had not sold out their own people. So how do you think you, as an individual, as even if you get elected to parliament, one person, how are you going to move the issue forward?
okay. The story would be something like this. It is like, for example, a son or a grandson seeing all the possessions of the father or the grandfather being sold or given away for whatever reason. But the son or the grandson has to find ways and means of getting those possessions back. Because to cry over it and to continue to complain and to blame other people for what has happened in the past, that is not going to change anything. So the key here now is Putrajaya at the moment is fighting among itself. And I think that this would be a good time for fringe persons who have strong principles to be able to say, I will support you, provided that you comply with our 5 pillars of Gerak Independent, one of which is to give full implementation to MA 63. The other is to end divisive politics, to give freedom back to the rakyat, and to restore all institutional power back to the rakyat. and to establish a needs-based affirmative and poverty eradication program instead of a party-based program. So that is something which would be very adaptable and very acceptable to Sabah, because we have tried all sorts of things and frankly it does not work. So we want to try to present a new way whereby people get what they see and they get what was promised to them. So, like for example, in Gerak Independent, what we are offering is you get to see your candidates before election day, whereas the normal is that you only see them on nomination day because you are to vote for the party and not for that person. So that's where Gerak Independent is going to stand and make a difference. And I hope that this is going to be the key tipping point for Sabah, because we have lost too much and we now are among one of the poorest states in the federation, when we should be actually one of the regional powerhouses of Malaysia. Unfortunately, that was not done.
Okay, you mentioned the 5-point manifesto, if that's what you're calling it, of Gerak Independent. Now,
We
that
call it
manifesto
pillars,
came out
pillars.
a few months ago, and since then, it has failed to generate much excitement. In fact, no excitement at all, except for the people in the what they call the Bangsa bubble, and people like me, commentators and columnists. But it has failed to excite the vast majority of voters. Why is that, you think? And I'm addressing this to all three of you.
Okay, if I may just jump on that, I think a lot of people are stuck with bread and butter issues, just trying to live and overcome the living costs and so on by the day. So they're not bothered with these issues yet. They will only deal with it when nomination day comes and when polling day comes. That's when the time that they realize that their choices are very, very limited. So most of them will not bother because they've already made up their minds to say that either they're going to vote or they are not going to vote, or they're going to vote along traditional lines. Now, what we hope in Gerak Independent is that people will actually have that opportunity to sit back and say, hey, this is one time when we can make a difference. Are we going to put that vote to try that difference? Or they're going to say it's going to be business as usual. Now, that is something that we can only propose, but it is for the people themselves to say, enough is enough. I want to have something different, and I want to get this candidate whom I think he can be able to deliver. And for the
But
record,
wait a minute. But wait a minute. Look, we've been through this in Malacca. We've been through this in Johor. Yes, Gerak Independent candidates were not contesting there,
Yeah.
but you had Pakatan Harapan and all the other parties putting their platforms, sharing their vision and their views, and they were basically rejected by the voters in these two states. So I'm trying to get you to understand the skepticism that is out there about this manifesto. You talked about bread and butter issues. That's true. But these bread and butter issues are going to dominate the GE15 if Malacca and Johor is anything to go by. So I'm trying to understand what is it about your manifesto that you think is a winning formula, and I hope you can help me understand that. Ravi, you
okay,
have something to say?
I'll
Yes.
respond to that. Okay, it's an issue of voter education. So the way I go about doing it is I produce 1 to 2 videos every week where I look at a national issue. There's something that's grabbing the attention of the nation and link it to a challenge that will be felt at the constituency or the grassroots level. I connect the two and provide a fresh insight or a perspective. And then I will link one of the 5 pillars, it's actually 4 because I don't talk much about MA63 and how and why that is necessary to be considered. So every single video that I do will summarize or come to a conclusion on one of the 4 different pillars. So it is a matter of educating, and people need to understand how the dots are connected. So I feel it is important, and that is why I have already done 70 videos to achieve that purpose. I need to do more because people need to understand what these 5 pillars are and how it is connected to the way they're going to live their lives.
Okay, but on the basis of all the research that you have done, what's the feedback? Do you think you're making some progress in terms of educating the voters, in terms of winning votes? Because that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's not so much about education, but in the end, it comes down to winning votes.
Yes. So because the issue is one of awareness, okay? So if I were to put something in Facebook, I have seen something from 1,000 views to 150,000 views. Notice, but that is only one of the channels that I've been using. Whenever I put something out in WhatsApp, I have absolutely no idea what is the penetration, but I see interesting observations. When I go, I recently took a court action against the police and the government of Malaysia regarding the Asam Baki protest. When I went to get to the commissioner oath to sign off, that lady saw Suntheralingam. I've seen that name somewhere before. I took up and said, "Did you watch this video? Have you been watching this video?" "Yes, I have." And this person is, I don't know who it was. It had been passed from one hand to the next to another. Another example is when I go have a cup of tea, somebody smiles at me, I don't know who it is, and they pay for my tea. So there's some kind of circulation that is taking place. I've got no idea to what extent, but I do know that people have been sharing it and are looking forward to new insights to what's going on. How to measure it, I have no idea. How do I measure penetration within WhatsApp? And I'm glad that there's no measure because I don't want the government to know how deeply penetrated my videos have been.
That is, if
Right.
I may,
Yes, John.
in all 3 past elections, the recent ones, they were state adun posts, okay? And you recognize the fact Gerak Independent did get involved. But what needs to be understood that general election is a bigger event because all 222 seats will be up for contest. And the kind of focused attention that states get, whether it's from the prime minister or whoever, the promoters of the policy, it's a different competition entirely. So my sense is we cannot generalize from all three of them. If you want to generalize, then look at what hope was provided by Muda. Muda did not lose their deposits in Johor. That itself is a credible performance. Okay, so my sense is people in Malaysia, especially after 2018, when they voted for change and they voted for hope, are ready for change and ready for hope. But the people who deliver the hope, they are very disappointed. And so the kind of loss of faith is really in politicians and politics. We're not politicians. I'm not a politician. I never will become a politician. But I can promise something, and as a public servant type, public interest delivery, I'll go out there and try and get the job done. And those who know me for 33 years and for all my writings would know these guys are saying the same thing for the last 30, 40 years. We've not said anything different. But why are they taking the risk at the age of 71 to go and run for election? Because we're not interested in power per se. Power is a means to achieve a bigger agenda. And that agenda is change. And change must be delivered this time round. If we lose the opportunity to provide change in GE15, I'm sorry, but I think Malaysia would have lost a major opportunity for a long, long time. That's my thinking.
One of the big issues you hear discussed whenever the issue of independent candidates crops up is that independent candidates have no chance of winning or have very little chance of winning, and they will probably end up splitting the vote that would go to the opposition, and in that way allow Barisan Nasional to win. How would you respond to those concerns? And this is for all three
Okay.
of you.
Yeah,
Okay. Let,
I addressed that earlier. Okay, now I can't talk about PJ and other places. I can only talk about Wangsa Maju. I've been there 32 years. I have put 2 MPs into parliament. This means that I know that area very well. I also have the support of Parti Keadilan Rakyat. Many of those people who support me are actually running for party election right now. I'm not alienated. Although I left the party 3.5 years ago, I am in constant communication and dialogue and have influence within PKR Bangsa Maju. The people in Amana are also my friends. So I'm not a particular stranger here. Somebody asked me, why don't you go and contest elsewhere? It makes no sense. I don't know the area. I don't have a network. I don't know the issues. And I'm going to struggle trying to make things happen. But it's a totally different story in Wangsa Maju. At this point, I want to stress one particular point about Gerak Independent candidate. Every single one of us undergoes, I would say, a brutal vetting process. Because my first interview with Gerak Independent lasted about 2 hours, and I had to go home and knock me out for 4 hours. It was that intense. What they do is NGOs, economists, and human rights activists will be cross-examining us on a whole bunch of issues. Now, every single one of us had to declare our assets and financial positions for the past 5 years. Thank goodness I keep my bank and tax accounts files for the past 35 years. I still have them on record, which is the only reason I was able to give accurate numbers. And we all have to commit ourselves into 14 different areas. What is our stand on education, political stability, race and religion, corruption and nepotism, the judiciary, economy and employment, as well as healthcare, human rights, etc. Every single one of us had to defend our stand. I have a stand on education. It was cross-examined. I had my stand on vernacular school. It was cross-examined. This is done to ensure that the Gerak Independent candidate possesses the attributes to become good elected representatives. You're not going to take chances with people who defect. We want to make sure that our positions are very clear. I am challenging you right now. Ask any other candidate from any other political party what is their position on all of these areas. Many of them may not even have an answer. I asked an interested party who wanted to become a candidate, what was reformasi? And he answered street protest. I said, no, reformasi is based on the Pematang Power Declaration. That is the underlying belief system of Parti Keadilan Rakyat. But what you hear is reformasi. There has to be much more than a chance. So we have gone through, I would say intense, but in my case, I felt it was very brutal. 2 rounds where I had to defend every single thing I had to say. And that is a testament of the candidate. Except, only problem now is people don't know what the vetting process is like. So I'm telling you now.
All right. John, Roland, you got anything to add to that?
Yes. In reply to your question about splitting votes, my view is that there will always be die-hard supporters of any party, and they will vote for that party regardless of whatever is happening because they are only party loyal. But my question here, therefore, to people like that is we are moving towards a different future, okay? Because the party itself if you are only supporting a party, you will always have enemies across the other side, because you will always have other people who are supporting other parties. And this is where Gerak Independent comes in and says that we are willing to work with anyone, okay, provided that you subscribe to our 5 pillars, okay. And so this is something we promise that we will deliver, and we will not join any party. And for the record, I have not joined any political party before, and I don't intend to do that either. I intend to remain as an independent, and to so that my real uh, uh, person that I would be fighting for would be my state, Sabah, and not for any party in particular, but for my state, Sabah, and for my country, Malaysia. So I
While
would
you're
like
on
to.
the question of your state, Sabah, I it is common knowledge that over the last few months, maybe years, the disenchantment with MA63 and belonging to Malaysia has risen tremendously. There are lots of angry voices coming from Sabah and Sarawak about all the injustices, about the unfair treatment, and much of it is justified. I mean, I can't argue with that. But what do you think is the solution?
Okay, this comes down and boils down to the politics of the federation. To live together with other people requires some sort of give and take. But what is on Sabah's side of the equation is that we seem to be giving all the while. So that's why we say that it's time for us to be responsible for our own affairs and look at it as a regional state, as a regional development, instead of a state, one of the 13 states. So that becomes important. That's why issues like 40% uh, cabotage policy, shipping costs, all these comes in, because for us to do business in Sabah, it's very expensive, because all the centers of power are in Kuala Lumpur, in Putrajaya. So we have to fly down there to negotiate and to do things. These are costs. Whereas for guys in West Malaysia, you can just drive down and you can drive back. So that's why I say that it would be good if we can move towards regional development. Because what is happening now is Putrajaya is trying to put a catch on everything. So much so that in Sabah's case, even if you want to make a call for the fire uh, station to get the fire brigade to come, the call is routed through Kuala Lumpur. And
Mhm.
there have been so many cases whereby I think at least 2 cases where the people concerned were burned to death because the call center in Kuala Lumpur has no idea where that location is. So I think that this is something that we will have to address. That the idea of centralization and central consolidation of power needs to be relooked at and on a regional basis, so that instead of everything being concentrated down in Putrajaya, look at us and vet us on a regional basis. Because there have been lots of complaints from the central government to say that, oh, we there's no point giving you too much money and too much power because you don't use them and you have no policies, you have no strong institutions. Well, if there is such criticisms, then we need to establish and to strengthen those institutions and those centers. But that
Okay.
is something that we will have to do.
All right. Thank you. I've got about 15 minutes left, so let me ask you. I have two questions to ask each of you. First, what is the biggest challenge in your view that our nation faces today?
Okay, let me start. I think that the biggest challenge that we face is our seeming focus on race and religion without looking at performance-based results to justify. Because you look at all our surrounding countries, okay? You look at China, for example, Indonesia, for example, they were able to look beyond this. Now, it is no doubt, every country goes through all these sort of stages of development. But I think that it is time, probably Malaysia is time for us to relook at it and say, because there's no point to push. If you push, nothing gets done. But I think that the time is now right, particularly in West Malaysia, but more so in Sabah and Sarawak, because we have been more towards this idea of performance-based results for a long time. Now, if we can solve this problem and look at the performance of the individual, I think we would go a long way. Of course, it will take time. That's all.
Okay. John?
If I may add, just two words. One is integration or unity, Some people prefer the word unity. How do we pull everything together, whether it's Sabah, Sarawak, and Malaya, the fact that Sabah and Sarawak are not states number 13 and 14, because you have to assume that Singapore was number 12 also. So how do you get beyond that? That's the unity, agenda. That means everybody gets treated, and we are three partners. I remember telling a minister from Sabah in the early years, way back when, I said, welcome to Malaysia, and I felt so embarrassed after that. He said, what are you talking about? I am from Malaysia. Okay, and Malayans did that before we became sensitive to these realities. Okay, so unity or integration. But to do that, we have to do it with integrity. And I think we lack integrity. And what do I mean by that? If we just take MA 63 or the federal constitution as our pillar, does the federal constitution stand up 90 degrees? My fear is it doesn't. Just everyday newspapers. I mean, the fact that the Chief Justice has come on and issue a statement to protect another judge tells you something is not right in the country. So I would say there are a lot of things rotten in the country, and they cannot be resolved until we start back at square one. What is square one? We are three states that are coming, ex-colonial states that are coming together to form Malaysia. Equal partners, equal one-third partners, and everything must be premised on that equality. Next is, what is the pillar? The pillar is the federal constitution. If we violate from the federal constitution, I think this house will collapse. And that's
okay, Ravi, what do you have to say?
I would not use the word concern. I will use the word cancer. We have a cancer called corruption in this country that extends at all levels, right from the top to the very bottom. And you will notice right now, the amounts involved are phenomenal. They are in the billions. All of this money evaporating, and that explains why we have so much poverty in this country. There is an elite group that has found that race and religion is a very convenient platform to justify a lot of things. And because of that, they adopt the divide and rule idea and segregate the population. You think it's along race and religion? No, it is the haves and the have-nots. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. It is because of corruption. So what we need to do is to get away. We have to realign the national budget away from excessive spending in all sorts of mega projects that don't make any sense, and focus it on developing the competencies, particularly of the B40 community, so that they can now qualify themselves for higher value jobs and gain more income, but you got to keep inflation under control. See, right now I see this form of corruption as a form of betrayal and treachery. An elite group, what I call golongan kayangan, exploits the wealth of the nation whilst keeping the population undereducated and getting away with it. This is the cancer. that we need to do a serious chemotherapy on.
Thank you. Okay. If there's one thing that you hope to achieve as a member of parliament if you get elected, if there's just one thing you would like to do, to achieve, to accomplish, what would it be?
Right.
Let me go and talk about the Ati Nahapan report. I'm serious because it so happens in the 53, my father stood for election and won at the local government level. But since then, since 1969, we have abandoned local elections. But the Ati Nahapan report put it together and suggested that we go back so that the strength of governance is reduced to the local council level, because that is where most of the basic issues are addressed and can be addressed, even economically, So we have avoided doing that. Today we have a system of local government, not by election, but by selection. Parties appoint their people, and I'm sorry, in all 157 local authorities, there is rampant abuse of authority and power. I don't have facts to say they're all corrupt, but I know that things just do not happen. And I'm doing a lot of investigations on the ground, and it's becoming evident that governance at the local level is not right. Now, how do we improve it? If you allow local precincts, the idea of precincts has been built into, for instance, in Petaling Jaya, there are 20 precincts. If each precinct, which is a geography, can elect their own councillors who shouldn't be politicians, that means they must take an oath saying, I'm not a member of any political party. Then they represent the local constituency, the local area. And then they can make policies and decisions and oversee the good governance, We have avoided doing that for various reasons. The main reason was they said all the local authorities would be won over by non-Malays, and the majority of non-Malays live in urban areas, and therefore there'll be racial disunity. I have not seen that. And I think, moreover, today there's a lot of rural-urban migration. All local authorities are mixed today.
So
May
your
not be
big thing will
majority.
be local government?
Yeah, local government.
All right. Ravi?
All right. I can identify myself with issues in Wangsa Maju, and I would think that the issue in Wangsa Maju are also manifested elsewhere, and that is one of urban poverty. Now, I regretfully have to tell you this, that during the lockdown, there were many Malaysians who ran out of money and also ran out of food. And citizens had to intervene and help each other because people were going hungry. For me, that is an indication of a failed government. So we have a declining economic condition that needs to be fixed. What is the political will to fix it? Once these economy issues are hurting the people, you will find a particular group right at the top who couldn't care less. All they want to do is their own wealth creation. We are going along the same path as Sri Lanka. And if you study how the Rajapaksa family had exploited the situation in Sri Lanka, they had created their own wealth, channeled it overseas, and we had the same situation where we don't know how much money has been placed in offshore accounts. They left the country in total tatters, and I am in regular communication with friends in Sri Lanka, and I can tell you the people there are angry because they are hungry. It is important for me. Every Malaysian must live with dignity. And the only way you can live in dignity if poverty is totally eradicated, and our pillar number 5 addresses that through a
So what is
needs-based
that one big thing that you want to accomplish?
to address the issue of poverty by fixing corruption.
All right. All right. Thank you. Now, before I let you guys go, I want to give you an opportunity. What message do you have for Malaysian voters? What will you say? What do you have to say to the people of Malaysia, as well as the people who in the constituencies that you are going to stand for election. Final message, at least as far as this show is concerned.
Yeah, as far as the show is
Okay,
concerned.
let me say this. My concern is that MA63 is not just going back to what was agreed in 1963. It is a works in progress, because since 1963, we have now got the Securities Commission, we have got the Energy Commission, we have got so many other new bodies which are regulating the lives of every Malaysian, like the like this cabotage policy, and Sabahans are not in any of these bodies and commissions. So I would like to see that Sabah is given its own place under the sun in Malaysia, and that is my message to the people.
All right.
So look
I
upon
still-
us, the Sabahans, as part of the diversity of the people in Malaysia that is going to give strength to Malaysia. Okay, so we are a bit further away. We have got natives here, but we are also going to be contributing to that strength in Malaysia. That's all.
Right.
Let
Thank you.
me just say this. Apart from fighting to reinstate the Athena Hapan report, I would like to see IPCMC established through Parliament, because the case of Pastor Raymond Koh et al. And all the others, Amri Chepmat and the others, is unbelievable that the police until today cannot report what happened. It's Suhakam who is digging up and trying to find out what's happened. So this is my pet dream. If I go into Parliament, the one thing I'm going to bug everybody and go digging for is to find out what really happened to Pastor Raymond Koh and Amri Chemat and all the others, Joshua and his wife. So this can only be done in and through Parliament, through the due processes already put in place by the change PH government, but not followed through by the subsequent governments. So the committees and the systems are already in place. The institutional shape is there, but there is no political will at the moment. And I hope that by contributing and getting involved and trying to bring about change, we can at least bring a conclusion to this matter. This
All
is
right.
a big issue for me personally. Thank you.
Okay. Ravi?
My message to all Malaysians: your future is in your hands. We have been burnt very severely by individuals who have entered Parliament who have not been men and women of honor. I suggest that you carefully consider your candidate, understand their personal values and beliefs, establish how much of integrity does this individual have, establish what are their convictions on a whole bunch of issues that are going to affect you, and determine if they have a track record in getting the job done. Choose such a person.
Wow. Thank you very much, John, Ravi,
Thank you.
Roland, for
Thank you for
thoughtful and
having me.
critical conversations. You guys have got an uphill battle ahead of you, but I salute you for taking the bull by the horns, for wanting to make a difference. I really salute you for that, and I wish you all the very best. And to all our viewers, thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us the next time. Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.